morning and welcome to Joy with Alicia. Today I'm going to bring you another little lecture about the general theory of positivity. This theory also comes to us from Dr. Fredrickson and colleagues at UNC Chapel Hill. So I kind of think of it as a broaden and build part 2. So just so remind us, get us back in the right headspace, the broaden and build theory states that positive emotions open us. They open us to more experiences, and that openness makes us take advantage of those opportunities. Go hang out with our friends, go to office hours, go to that concert. Those positive emotions help us do those things. And when we do those things, we build resources, and resources make us more resilient, and they lead us toward flourishing. So flourishing is optimal mental health. So that's what we're aiming for here. The general theory of positivity says there's a tipping point to go into flourishing. So let me back up a little bit. Flourishing, again, is optimal mental health. Then, of course, the other end of the spectrum, there's mental illness. In between, we have languishing. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of us are. We're not mentally ill, we're not showing symptoms of mental illness, but we're not flourishing. So we call that languishing. So Dr. Fredrickson built on her broaden and build theory and hypothesized that there would be a tipping point where you would go over from languishing to flourishing. So what she found in her research is that that tipping point is approximately 3 positive experiences for every 1 positive experience. Technically it's 2.9, but for the sake of understanding it and in real life using it, let's say 3 to 1. So that's kind of high. The way we get that though is through mindfulness. That's why we spend so much time on this channel meditating and practicing mindfulness, is because positive emotions are more subtle. We need to be paying more attention to be able to see many of them. I mean, again, sometimes Christmas morning, not subtle. Vacation, not subtle. But most of our everyday positive emotions, a hug, that first sip of coffee, seeing our friends, they're a little bit more subtle. So we need to observe them. We need to be paying attention to see them. So where did that positivity ratio come from? Where did that tipping point come from? So she did a study in college students and had them take their positivity ratios for about a month. And then she took their average of positive to negative emotions. On the measurements she took, those students who were above that 2.9 were flourishing. They were doing well at school, they were doing well in their relationships, they were doing well in general, flourishing, optimal mental health. And those that were below the 2.9 were languishing or even mentally ill. So the average person that's languishing has about a 2 to 1 ratio. Someone who has mental illness might be as low as 1 to 1 or even lower. Flourishing, we get above that 3 to 1. So that is our goal, to get above that 3 to 1. So mindfulness, paying more attention to those subtle positive emotions, spending more time savoring those positive things, that first sip of coffee, the sunshine hitting your face, watching the birds play outside. I like to feed animals in my front yard, so I love watching them eat. Not as subtle form of positive emotions, but we pay attention to these positive emotions. To get your ratio, if you want to start keeping track of this, we will put the link to it in the description to this video so that you can start keeping track. Please don't judge yourself by just one day. Take at least a week of measurements and average it to get a sense of where you are. And no matter how low you are today, you are here. You are doing the work to eventually get above that 3 to 1. So just stick with me, stick with mindfulness, stick with paying attention to your positive emotions. Do things like savoring, which we'll talk about in a separate little lecture, which just means spending more time enjoying the good things. Also in flow, which is when we're fully absorbed in a hobby or activity. Again, we'll talk about that in its own little lecture as well, because that's a pretty big topic. But until then, work on your positivity ratio, work on noticing those subtle positive things in your life. And before you know it, your ratio will be above that 3 to 1. In fact, people that actively work on their positivity ratio, it usually takes about 3 months, give or take, to get above that tipping point. So I have replicated the study with some of my students and have found that it's about 3 months to get to that 3 to 1. So just be patient, be mindful, and until then, be well. Namaste.